And good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the page. It's Chris Kerwin here with Astronomy by the Bay. We were a couple of minutes late there. So every once in a while, we get technical issues when we're doing a live stream. So we're back again now. I'd like to welcome, first of all, Mike Powell, who is here with us tonight from St. John.
Hello.
And we've got RASC member Paul Owen from Hampton
Hello.
with us tonight, and
Hi.
Emile Cormier, who's joined us from Bactouche tonight.
Hi.
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk a little bit about sketching at the eyepiece. It's an art on its own. So Emile Cormier is going to offer us a nice talk on how to go about that. And I'm going to be watching for your comments here as they come in through the screen. So Emile's going to give us a talk about how to sketch at the eyepiece, and he's going to give us some examples of sketches that he's done. It really is quite an art on how to do it. It takes a lot of patience, but you learn a lot when you're doing it as well. So from there, we're going to go to Paul, and Paul is going to do us talk up on processing. And that's basically when you're taking your DSLR and you've taken a few photos of the moon, and you want to take those pictures and stack them. Paul's going to give us an example of a free software package that you can use, and some examples of the stacking as well. And if we have enough time, Mike's going to do us a little talk on finders, and if that doesn't work out tonight, we'll be doing that next week. And I got to say now, this is episode 9 for us, and it's only been 2 nights out of 9 that we've actually had a clear sky. So we're really having a tough time here trying to get some night sky views for you, but we're hoping that's going to improve here shortly. So, okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Emile, I guess.
Hello.
And,
can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. And let's
Okay.
make sure you're up on the YouTube screen here first of all. And fire red brown. Good evening. Okay, Emile, I guess I'll get you to take it away.
Okay. So I've been sketching at the eyepiece for the first couple of years that I started astronomy. I'm a bit rusty. I haven't done it in a while because I ended up getting into astrophotography, and I don't have much time to do both anymore. But I think I still pretty much remember my technique, and I'll try to show you how I did it. The first thing you're going to need is a sheet to sketch on, and you're going to want to either print or draw on a sheet circles, and that represents the field stop of the eyepiece. And by field stop, I mean when you're looking through the eyepiece, there's a point when you look outward where you're no longer looking at the sky, but the actual edge of the inside of the eyepiece. And it'll look like a big circle. And the idea is that that circle corresponds to the circle on your sheet here. There are observing forms where they provide sketching circles, but I find they're too small. So I made my own where one circle almost takes up half of the page, and that gives me more room to draw my objects. Other things you need are going to be sketching tools. You can buy kits from art supply or craft stores that'll have a lot of the stuff you need. So what you'll need will be a set of graphite pencils of different darkness. I have from 2H at the lightest to 6B as the darkest. So you'd use the darker ones for brighter objects and the lighter ones for fainter objects, or just as little guide dots, so that if you make a mistake, you can still erase them without it appearing too much. You'll also need an old-fashioned eraser. Well, you all know what that looks like. I must have taken it out of my kit for something else and didn't put it back. Oh, here's one from my desk. Here, old-fashioned eraser. Also a kneaded eraser. So this is kind of like a putty that you can knead to whatever shape you need. Let's say you just want to remove graphite from one little spot. Mine's collected quite a bit of graphite, and I think is due to be changed out for a fresh one. One of the most important for deep sky objects are blending stumps. Here's a big fat one, and I've got little skinnier ones. And they're not what they look like. They're just rolled up paper, rolled up really tightly.
Okay.
And you use these to kind of smear around graphite. And sharpeners, of course. An erasing stencil. If you just want to erase a small part of your sketch without ruining everything else. This might be more in technical drafting section of the store instead of the art section. If you can't find it in the art sketching section. And also, this is very fine sandpaper, which you use to, if you want to dull the tip of a pencil a bit, so that it's not so sharp. You can just start with a pencil and an eraser if that's all you have, and you can use your fingers as blending stumps or kind of improvise your own. But that's essentially what I have. Chris, let me know if I'm getting short on time there.
Sure, yep, you're good.
So the first thing you do once you're all set up with your instruments, your implements, and you're at the telescope. Forgot to mention, you'll want a clipboard to hold your sketching sheet. I found this one that I like very much. It opens up and you can store your observing logs and sheets inside, and it keeps them dry from the dew getting them all wet. So you attach your sketching sheet to the clipboard. Well, and ideally you'd be sitting at the eyepiece if possible, and I like to have a little table next to me to hold all my tools and clipboard and whatnot. Of course, you'll also need a red, preferably dimmable light, as dim as you can find, because even if it's red, it can still ruin your dark adaptation, and you'll often be going from the illuminated sheet to the telescope.
Right.
So once you're set up, and what I'm going to do is use an old sketch and pretend that's what we're seeing through the eyepiece, and I'll try to go through the steps of duplicating it. So here I sketched the dumbbell nebula. I can try to get a closer view, but I'm worried it'll get out of focus if I go too close.
Oh, that's good, Emil. You were good there.
Okay.
Yeah, they're good there, yeah.
So the first thing you do is once you've centered your target, you look for bright stars, and those are going to serve as your signposts or guides for sketching the actual object. And what you do is you look through the eyepiece, and you have to imagine a clock face. So I'm looking here, that's the 12 o'clock position, 3 o'clock position, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and you can even subdivide that 1, 2, 3 o'clock, and so on. So I look at, say, this star here. I hope you can see that. If not, trust me, there's a star that I'm pointing to.
Yeah, we can see it very clearly.
Now it's at the 12 o'clock position, and about, I'd say 2/3 of the way from the center to the field stop. So you kind of have to eyeball that and reproduce that on your paper. I sometimes will put a very faint center dot to begin with. I'll use my lightest pencil, the 2H, and I'll put a little, you might not see it on the camera, but there's a very faint dot there. I'll use that as a reference. That's the center. And I'm going to go 12 o'clock about 2/3 of the way up. And I'm going to use a light pencil to begin with. Oh, and I've already smudged my paper there. So 2/3 at 2 o'clock. And if by pressing it's not bright enough, don't go like this to make it appear bigger. What you do is you twist the pencil to darken the dot that you just put in there. And then I'll go back to the eyepiece. Okay, there's another bright star here at about 3/5 from the center to the field stop at let's say 4:30. So I go here in my paper, about 2/5 at the 4:30 position. And I'll draw a little dot there. And you do that for all the brighter stars in what you see, especially those that are going to be useful markers for your object. So this object here, unfortunately, there's not many stars embedded in them, but I'll still sketch in the nearest ones so they'll serve as little guides. So at 12 o'clock, 1/3 of the way up here, another one next to it. So 2/3 of that distance at say 12:30. Another one here along the same line as that other star we drew, about less than 1/3 of the distance to there. And so having these nearby stars close to the object are going to serve as guides to know how far we're going to draw in this deep sky object. So I usually would have a lot more guide stars in place before I actually start sketching the object, but for the interest of brevity, I'm just going to assume that these are enough. So to draw this nebulous stuff, I don't use the pencil directly. What I do is I'll take my darkest pencil, which is my 6B, and I'm going to draw a patch of graphite here. Kind of like a painter's palette, where there'll be blobs of paint that they apply to a brush. I'm going to drop some graphite here, and then I'll use a blending stump. And I have one where the tip is not very sharp, it's kind of rounded. And that'll serve well to act as a brush, and I'm going to brush on the graphite very slowly. So I'm going to apply graphite to the stump, and I'm going to look back to the eyepiece. Okay, so it's an hourglass shape, and it's oriented towards the 12:30 direction, and I'm going to have to stop halfway between the center and that guide star. So up to around here. Just going to roughly sketch in the outline. And then fill in with graphite. And you do this very slowly. Try to get the general shape correct at first. So I see I'm going to need more graphite, so I'm going to go back here, grab some more, and then paint in the nebulosity.
Emil, I did have a question. Somebody's asking, how much time do you put into one sketch?
Between half an hour and 45 minutes,
Okay.
maybe. It's a long, laborious process. So I'm very rusty, and I'm doing this on a live broadcast. So obviously, I'm not gonna do as good a job as I did back then when I was all alone, relaxed. But this just gives you a general idea of the technique. I might switch to this fatter blending stump. Just paint it darker. So I've kind of grabbed all the graphite that there is there, so I'm going to use my pencil and drop some more graphite in there. And pick it up with the blending stump. And darken this object. Like so. And if you have a wider object and you have a bunch of reference stars, and those are guideposts that tell you, okay, I have, the shape has to go between that and that star, and you can kind of do geometry and figure out where things should go. So if we go back to my original sketch, there's fainter fuzziness that extends beyond the bright part. So for that, what you can do, I'll go to a clean part of my blending stump, and I'll smear that around. Especially if the wispiness has a certain directionality to it, like say the Pleiades, you'll move the blending stump in that direction to kind of emulate the direction of that wispiness. And this technique here works also very well for galaxies. Just sketch in with their blending stump a dark core, and then use a clean part of the blending stump to sketch in, paint in the surrounding halo around the galaxy core. So I'm quite rusty, and I'm under the gun, so obviously it's not going to be as good. But it gives you the idea. Now here, you might not see it, but here I noticed that, I pushed it too far. You'll be tempted to use a regular eraser to remove it, but graphite that's been pushed into the paper with a blending stump is very hard to remove with a traditional eraser. So that's where your kneaded eraser comes in. And if necessary, you can shape it to a little tool here, and I'm gonna, it's sticky, the stuff is sticky, and I'm gonna press it here where I've put too much graphite, and it's gonna pick it up. And like I said earlier, this kneaded eraser is very dirty, and it didn't do a good job of cleaning it up. So if I had a clean one, it would be removing that extra graphite that I put in there. I'll try salvaging that with this masking template. Here I have a pencil type eraser. I'm gonna rub it here to clean it up first. And if the kneaded eraser doesn't work, then you can try this. And okay, yeah, so it cleaned up that extra bit of graphite I had too much of here. So, any questions so far?
Yeah, I have another question for you. Rob Dare is asking, is there a specific paper stock that works better?
Yes. Remind me to show people what I use.
Okay.
Because I don't want to disturb my setup right now.
Right.
But I use 32-pound paper. So that was the heaviest paper I could find without it being actual cardstock. And I'll show you the ream of paper when I'm done here.
Great, thanks.
Yes, if you use very thin paper, what's going to happen is the dew is going to get it all damp, And when you use the eraser or whatever, it's just going to rip the paper.
Right.
So I use the thickest paper possible to help that. Um, I suppose you could use cardstock, but it's going to get expensive, and once you bind all your sketches together, it's going to be thick.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's what I use
Okay,
for
great.
paper.
Thank you.
So once you've sketched in your object and you're happy with it, oh, one thing I should mention is if you're using a telescope with an altitude azimuth mount, basically where you can swivel it left, right, up, down, it's not an equatorial mount. If you take a good while to sketch your object, what's going to happen is a phenomenon called field rotation. So the picture of what you're looking through the eyepiece over time is going to rotate. And it'll essentially do one full rotation every 24 hours. So if you take 1 hour to do your sketch, it's going to rotate to the 1 o'clock position. So keep that in mind while you're adding stars. That what I do is I take my clipboard and I orient it to match what I still see in the eyepiece before I add any more stars. So that's something to be on the lookout for, is watch out for field rotation. So once you're happy with your object, then what you can do is add more stars in your star field if you want to. It makes it look nice once you have a bunch of stars in your star field. So again, grab a light pencil and divide this as I just ruined my sketch. Well, I have a scan of it, so anyway.
No problem.
Imagine the clock face and estimate the distance from the center to the field stop, and then just plop in little dots. This is much easier than actually looking at an eyepiece and then a piece of paper. Paper to paper is easy, but eyepiece to paper is harder. Like so. Now, some stars are obviously going to be brighter than the others, and if you've ever looked at a star chart, you'll see that the bright stars look fatter, and also in an astrophotograph. So for the brighter stars, what you're going to do is switch to a darker pencil, say, I don't know, 4B. Try to find my 4B here. That's my 4B. And you don't want it razor sharp, but you don't want it too stubby either. I think this one is pretty good right now. And see that bright star there? I'm going to go here, and the faint dot I had before, I'm going to take my pencil. Oh, my hand is... okay, let me try this. I'll use my left hand. There. I'm right-handed. Okay. Then you twist the pencil. Of course, I'll be using my left hand. So I kind of wrecked it. Okay, so I'll use this mask. Actually, I should... Well, if this wasn't dirty, I try to pick up the graphite with it first. And then if there's any left, use the regular eraser. There. And you're going to find you're smudging graphite everywhere all the time. You can try to erase it as you go along, but you can also fix that when you're going to process this thing after you scan it in processing software. So that was a bright star too, so I go here, drop it there, and then twist it. So twisting will make it more of a round dot than if you try to do like this here. See, it's not round, and it's not even, it's misshapen, so it's better to go like this and twist it. If it needs to be even fatter, well, you can use your sandpaper and make the tip even wider. there's a fatter, brighter star there. Now for the medium brightness stars, then you could switch to not so dark pencil, say 2B, or not 2B. And again, you don't want it razor sharp. You don't want it too dull either. So let's say this was a medium darkness star. You twist it, and there's your medium darkness star. So you do that for as many stars as you have the patience to add in after you're done your main object.
Nice. So I had another question, Emil. Putting 45 minutes into a sketch is do an issue.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
The paper starts to get damp, and you got to be careful not to rip it with your eraser.
Right.
And as soon as you're done, put your sheet and put it away. In my case, I'm going to put it away in my nice closable clipboard here.
Nice. Okay.
What else? So that's it for the actual sketching part. I should mention that I don't have much experience sketching the moon. From what I've seen, it's much more difficult and probably more time consuming. The nice thing about sketching the moon is, well, you have something to do when it's a moonlit night and you're not complaining, oh, the sky is all bright. It's something maybe I'll try getting into, but I've only done deep sky image sketching, and I haven't done any planetary sketching either. So that's a quick dumbbell nebula sketched for
Great.
your viewing pleasure.
Thank you very much, Emil.
How am I for time? Do you need more from me, or?
Well, I think we're doing pretty good. Let's take a look at Paul now. Paul, how much time would you like? We're into about 27 minutes right now, so.
We can hand it over to Paul, and if we still need more time, what I can do is show you how I scan it and
Okay.
reverse its colors. Before we switch off, I'd like, if you don't mind, just show you the public the final result after it's scanned and the colors inverted.
Okay,
Just
yeah,
real quick.
great.
Maybe it'll just take me a minute.
Paul, can I get you to
So,
speak? I wasn't hearing you. I'm not hearing you, Paul. Mike, are you all right there? Yeah, I can
I
hear you
don't hear
okay.
Paul, but I hear you.
Yeah, okay. I'm not hearing you, Paul. Still nothing, Paul. Can you hear us okay? Yes, okay. But I'm
Paul,
not-
maybe if you leave the Hangout session and rejoin, maybe it'll fix it.
We should be able to come in with the same link.
In the meantime, I can show you the final result after it's scanned. So I scan these on a flatbed scanner, and I reverse their colors. And I personally use the GIMP, but you can use Photoshop or your favorite photo editor, and do a little touch-ups if they need it. So
To say when you're doing the actual drawing, Emil, it looks like you're drawing the light parts in dark and the dark parts in light. That's why you reverse it after.
that's right. And it's unbelievable after you reverse it. You don't even believe that you're the one who sketched it in the first place.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay, so that's you should be seeing the GIMP here, my favorite photo editor.
There you are, Paul.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hear you now.
All right.
Great.
So I'm just I'll skip the cropping and all that. What I'll do is I'll just go here, colors, invert,
Oh, wow.
and look at that.
That's incredible.
And you can hardly believe you're the one who sketched that in the first place. It's just magical what it does.
Yeah, it looks like more like what you see in the eyepiece for sure.
Yeah. And if you find that there's smears of graphite left over, well, you can take the clone stamp tool and just stamp out the places where you drop the graphite.
I
And
just
do
tell
little
everybody
touches.
it's a meteor going across or an airplane.
Yeah. So I guess I ended up doing the processing part after all. It only took me a minute. You can also after you've scanned it and inverted, you can play with the levels. Um, and okay, you can't see my level tool. I've got another window to control my levels, and what I can do is brighten the object like so, and then if the background is too bright, then I can bump up the black point. If you want to give more contrast to your object. So mine didn't really need any, but I just wanted to show you how, if your object is too faint, you can boost it with your photo editing tools. So that's it for me, and I thank everyone for your time. Oh, and I promised I'd show you the
Yes.
paper.
Paper.
Were there any other questions in the meantime?
Looks like we're good for questions. If anybody does have a question, this is the time to ask. We still have Emil on here, so.
So you're seeing the mirror image because the webcam is set up to show your own reflection, but it's here, 32 pounds paper stock, and I bought it in a ream of 500. It's also useful if you want to print out charts and stuff to use under the stars. It'll get less saturated with dew than regular cheap paper.
Nice.
So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Emil.
Oh, thank you.
That's fantastic.
So an amazing piece of work there that takes a lot of patience, and I mean, what you can pick up at the eyepiece is quite amazing, really. And it allows you to pick up a whole lot more at the eyepiece. You'll get to observe in a lot better fashion because you're going to be concentrating on specific areas that you're viewing through the eyepiece for sure. So
It's amazing the difference it makes when he changes, the reverses the colors.
yeah,
Like you said, it looks like a photograph.
You brought up a very good point, Chris, that I found that sketching made me a better observer.
exactly.
And then when I was doing these sketches while I was working on my Messier certificate. So after sketching, when it came to writing down what it looked like, well, I had been contemplating it for half an hour, so it came easier.
Right. Yeah.
And you practice averted vision a lot when you're doing this, and it really improves your observing skills.
Thank you so much, Emil. Really appreciate it.
There's a question there.
Okay.
Chris said, what inspired him to get into astronomy?
There you go.
I was always interested in space and stars and all that since I was young. But it was only, must be 5 years now that I really got into the hobby, got the equipment, and really got into it. So I can't explain why I was always interested. I just was.
Great.
It's in the blood.
That's what it is, for sure.
It's not in the pocketbook, but it's in the blood.
It comes out of the pocketbook.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Emil. That was great. Great session there. Amazing what you can capture. Paul, I guess you're up. We're running about 17 minutes left, I guess. So
Okay. All right. Well, can you hear me okay?
actually, at
You can see
27
me?
minutes left. I'm sorry.
That's
27.
all
Yeah, you got lots of time. Yeah, I think everybody can see you.
right. Okay, good. All right. So basically, what I'm going to cover tonight is how do you take a picture of the moon and stack a few images and put them together and come up with a picture that people like to see and share. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give it an attempt anyway, and then I'll show you what I start with in order to capture the video that we need. And it should be this one. Okay, so you should be able to see the telescope.
We do, yeah.
Okay, so basically, when you're taking pictures, planetary pictures, whether it be telescope or whether it be or planets or the moon, I should say, and the moon is going to be our topic of discussion here. what I use to capture this video I'm going to show you, I just want to quickly give you an idea of what it is. As complicated as that rig is, forget about all the stuff on top. It's just a refractor, which is that white telescope in the middle, and there's a camera in the back. And when we do our live feeds here, whenever the skies are clear, this is the camera that we're showing a lot of our astro stuff with. So this kind of camera is a dedicated astronomy camera, but you can use it for either planetary or you can use it for deep space photography. So that's basically the camera that I was capturing my videos with, to be able to give you some moon pictures. So so essentially, when you're taking some photographs of the moon, or actually it's actually a movie really, when the camera's actually acquiring it, we're using what we call SharpCap is a software that we use. And basically, it's a capture software so that you can take pictures and download them into your computer. So when you're looking at a live version of the moon right now, this is just a still, but I'm going to see if I can figure out how to play on this. There we go. And you can actually see as I hit play, it's a very short video, but you're going to see a lot of movement on the moon. So you can see that shimmering going on. So that shimmering that you're seeing going on basically is the atmosphere that's that we have to shoot through. So when you're taking, one or two or three images from, say, a DSLR camera, there's a good chance that a lot of what you're going to take a picture of is going to be very blurry, simply because of that movement. And that's the atmosphere that we have to deal with. So that's why, as an astronomer, when we want to go out and look at or image any kind of planetary items, we want what we call good seeing, which means very, very little activity in the sky, so that what we're looking at is nice and steady. And when it's not steady, it can even look as bad as, through a telescope especially, it can look like looking at water or pebbles through a running brook. That's how much movement can happen. So in order to create a nice photograph, you've got to take a whole bunch of them. And that's why we take movies to do planetary things, because what we're trying to do is get as many pictures as we can to get as many clear shots of that whole surface, so that we're able to put it all together in one photograph and then give you nice clarity throughout the whole image. So that's the movie part. So let's just pretend that we went out there and we set up our scope, we caught the movie, now we've got it in our computer. So now what we have to do is we have to use a program in order to stack it. And the one that I'm going to show you tonight, actually I'll download another moon here in a minute, I'll just clear off those points, is it's a software called Auto Stackert. That's AUTSTAKKERT, and it's right up here in this little corner. It's kind of hard to see. It's a free software. You just download it, and it's absolutely wonderful. I used RegiStacks for years and years and years, and then Emil actually was the one that told me all about using Auto Stackert. So I started messing around with it, and through some of his instruction and some stuff I found on YouTube, I'm starting to get comfortable with it. The thing I like about it in terms of reliability is unlike RegiStacks, is no matter what you throw at it, it seems to process very well. Where I found with RegiStacks, it was very glitchy. Sometimes it would work. Sometimes you could only put so many videos in, and then it would kind of crash on you. And that's not just me. That's kind of what's echoed throughout the astronomy world with that particular software. Again, a free software, and it's the thing that I use it for now is what they call the wavelets, which is a sharpening system that they have in it. So that's what I'll use from RegiStacks. But now I do all my stacking with Auto Stackert. So basically, first thing you're going to see is two screens. You're going to see this little screen here, and then you're going to see the larger display screen. So what we need to do first, and I'm just going to kind of go through this, and I'm actually going to take a photograph and stack it. The first thing you want to do is you're going to open the software. And just a sec here, I had to put batteries in my mouse here, so I'll drag that over so you can see. So once you find a video, I'll grab this one, say right here. And then I'm just going to open that. And that video is basically what you're looking at right here. Just give my computer a second to process it. There we go. So once I've got that done, then I'm just going to put my anchor point on it. Now, typically that little anchor point, if you just press the, I think it's the shift note, the control key, and drag your mouse around, you can move that anchor point to where you want. So you want to take it to a spot where it's nice and bright, because what we're going to do is our next thing is we're going to actually analyze this. Before we analyze, there's a couple of buttons in this little small area that we want to talk about. One's for planets, which is this one. And that's basically designed so if you've got a very, very small disk on there and a lot of black background, then you're going to want to use a planet because it's the center of gravity is what that one is used for. When you use that center of gravity for planets, then you can actually crop it out, because when you're processing this stuff, you don't want to process all the black space. So the smaller that you can make it, the faster it'll process. But in this case, we're dealing with surface, so we're going to use surface, which is that one. You can check improve checking if you want to, and I always leave it on expanded rather than crop for this particular one here. So those are the settings I use in my stabilization section. In the quality estimator, I just leave it checked on Laplace, and you can either use local or global. For the analyzing, I watched a couple of videos, and there's sort of two minds about this. You can either use global or local for it. I think it was suggested that I use global first for the first analyzing, and I do. And then you just basically hit analyze. So what it's going to do now, you're going to notice on the top and on the bottom, it's actually going to start to analyze the picture. And so we'll just wait for that to go through. And while that's doing that, I'll get you to look over here in the top section, because that'll take a minute or two. And you're going to see there's number of frames to stack, and then frames per percentage of stack. So these, and I'll get to that in a second, but this is one of the things that will allow you to either produce one or up to 8 different versions of the one photograph off this one session, which is really, really neat. Okay, that's just about stabilized. And there we go. And now it's just going to do that. That'll be very, very quick. So now what it's going to do, it's going to actually download a graph for me. And there's the graph right there. So what this graph is telling me is that shaky line that you see in the back is actually all of my frames. And then the green line is actually the quality level that we're at. So you can see that once I get out to about probably this area here, I'm actually starting to drop quality. So that's about halfway across. So what they're recommending is about 50% of my frames I should use. If I use 100% of them, chances are I'm going to be putting a lot of bad frames in there. So they're recommending 50%. So then, excuse me. So if I take my frame percentages, and I'll just clear these ones out because I'm not going to do 4 because of the length of time it'll take to do it. So I'm just going to do one image, and I'm going to do what they recommend, which is 50% of my frames. So I just put, excuse me, I put 15 there. That'll give me 50% of the frames. But before I do that, I have to go over here to this section, which is where the actual picture of the moon is, and I have to put my my points on. So basically, right here, there's 4 numbers. 24. If I chose 24, then that would give me a really, really small point or a little box. But this is, they're saying between 50 and 100 points if you can do that, or maybe even up to 200. That seemed to be about a good stacking points to put on there. So I'm going to go with 200, and I'm just going to go with place the AP grid right on it now. When I do that, you'll see right up here, it's counting all of my points, my alignment points. So it looks like it did a good job on covering the moon, although there are some places up here that it's not covered. So all you have to do is just basically click, and you can actually fill in with those extra points. So fill in those areas that it didn't cover, because that's quite a dark area. But when I go ahead and use my curves and brighten that up, that's going to light up. So I want that stacked.
You can also play with min bright to get it to grab more of the darker spots.
Okay.
But what you just did is fine too.
Okay. And where's the min bright? You know?
Right above the place AP grid button.
Oh, the membrane, yeah, right there. Sorry, my apologies. I see it. Yeah, okay, so right there. So if I push that, I probably won't do anything now, will it?
You'd have to clear your
And
APs
start over
and
again. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to fill that in and continue on with this. There we go. And then once I've got those alignment points selected and I'm comfortable with everything I want to capture, then, and I've already set this to 50%. And you'll notice here there's what they call a sharpened, RGB align, and save in folders. So the save in folders, that's just common sense. You want to save it in a folder, but the sharpened is really, really nice because what this does, this will give you two versions. So when I'm actually done with this, I'm going to have two separate images, one that's not sharpened and one that is sharpened. Now, you'll notice underneath there where it says sharpen, it also says blend raw in for 50%. So that means what's going to happen is it's not going to sharpen at 100%. It's going to take a blend of both a non-sharpened and a sharpened image, and it's going to use a combination of the two, and it give me somewheres in between. Because if you go with no blend, it'll be very, very, very sharp, probably too sharp. So a blend at about 50% tends to work kind of nicely. And then when I'm done with it, and I'll get to that point when I'm done with it, and then you can make the decision whether you want to keep the blended one or you want to go with the one and sharpen it yourself. So all we have to do at this point, and if you're doing color, which mine was in color, so you hit your RGB align, so that'll align your reds, your blues, and greens. And then you go ahead and just basically, you can call it something if you want to. So I can add a prefix so I know what this is. So we'll just call it Sunday Night Astronomy Show Moon. And that's my prefix. So when it basically throws me a file, it's going to give me a big long name, and this will be attached to it, so it'll be easy to find. If you're shooting something that's really, really small and you're losing resolution and you want to gain some back, you can use your drizzle. Right now I haven't used it because I haven't shot planetary with this yet. I know that Emil has. But I'm going to go ahead and just stack this now. So basically press my stack button, and then you're going to see a whole bunch of things take place again right up here. And this will take just a couple of minutes to go through. So while that's going through that process, what's going to happen when that process actually completes, it's going to put up a file for us. And that file, and I'll see if I can bring one up while that's actually doing that. We'll move that window down maybe. No, I guess it's not going to let me do it while it's functioning. Okay, I'll show you when we're done anyway, because you're going to see the file. This doesn't take long because this is not a, I'm only doing one image. Those, you see up there where it says 50 and then there's 4 other zeros? If I wanted to, I could start off with my 20 best frames, and then in this one here, I could have put, say, my 50 best frames, and this one here, maybe my 75, and then all the frames. And then it'll actually download all 4 versions, and then I could have a look at each one and see which one that I like the best, because depending on your seeing conditions, optical, all kinds of different things, sometimes 75% of the frames may be a better result than 25% of the frames. But rather than trying to do it all separately, you can do it all at once, and then from there go ahead and process the one that you like the best. Okay, we're almost done here now. So you can see how fast this processing works. It's saving it right now. That'll be the last thing. So when that finishes there, and wait for that saving to finish. Once saving is done, then you're right there. There you go. Now we've got our image captured. So let's see if we can find it. That's almost the fun part. Okay, so that should be, okay, give me a minute here to think about where that would have went. It's probably on my desktop, so just give me a moment, folks. And I use 50 on that.
I think so. It's a subfolder from where your stacked image, your video file was when you opened the video file.
Okay, yeah, that would be right back here. No, it wasn't there. Right there. Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, so there it is there. So, so right up here, and I call that, I don't see it here. It went, there it is right there. That's the demo. No, that's not it. It should be,
What's it
It
called?
would be under P50 because you used 50% of your frames.
yeah, we'll check it there.
You gave it a name too,
Sunnet,
SNAS.
yeah, there it is, our Sunnet
Yeah.
Astronomy show. Processed. There it is there. Demo SNAS Moon. Did I call it demo? I probably did. Okay, so so there's the two images. So I'm going to show you the two images that it gave me. I think it was these two. So give me a second here to think about this. That's the trouble with it. That should be, yeah, that's SNAS Moon. That's it. Okay, so basically I'm going to bring these two out so we can have a look at them. Okay, and I'm just going to close that down. And I'm going to take and I'm going to open up Photoshop now. And this is where I'm going to process them. And I'm just going to clear off the ones that you see here. And then I'll open these other ones. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go File, Open. And they are on my desktop. No, they're not. Where'd they go? They should be on my desktop. There we are.
Yeah, they're, yeah.
And there they are there. So I'm going to open this one. And then I'm going to open the second one. Just give me my window here. Arrange them side by side. And then I'll open the second one. And it's down here. Okay, so now I'll be able to put those beside each other. Right there. Okay, so now you can see the image on the right is the image that is not sharpened. So this one, it would have spit it out prior to sharpening. And if you see the one on the left, you can see that it's considerably sharper. So, so let's just take and blow these up a little bit just so we can see a little bit more detail. So I'm going to put it at 66% on both of them. So you can see the difference in the sharpening right away. Now, what I found with the auto stacker sharpening algorithms, once you find the blend mode that you like, I found that really they sharpen extremely well because I went in and I tried a few other sharpening programs in Photoshop and a couple of other ones in Camera Raw. And I haven't tried it in PixInsight yet, but I went to these two. And to be frank, I liked the immediate result that I got from the auto stacker sharpening. It's very, very nice. So let's say, for example, I want to use my auto stacker sharpened one. Then from there, what I would do, I would click on it. And I'm going to leave the other picture up, but we'll work with this one here for now. So it's a very, very simple routine what I go through. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on image, and I'm going to do an auto color on it. So bang, now it looks like the typical moon colors that we'd see. It's taken that green cast off because when you're using that camera, the RGB, two greens, because you're always going to be green strong. So this way here we have a balanced colors now. The second thing I do is I just simply go in and I do an auto contrast. So now I've got a nice black background and I've got a really, really good foreground. Then from there, I was watching one of the, what's that fellow's name? The fellow that does all the moon photos. Oh, good golly.
Damien Peach?
No. It'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, so he was suggesting that in the new Photoshop software, if you go into filter, go down to sharpen, and I'll use it on this, and I may or may not keep it, but it's called shake reduction. And he uses this on every one of his moon images, just simply because you do happen to have some spots in that image where you know, even after stacking that, it didn't quite straighten things up. So you just go ahead and hit shake reduction. You're not seeing what's going on there because it's on my other screen, but I'm just going to simply hit OK, and we'll see if it makes a difference. So it's going to take the process. And there it goes. So to me, because this has already been sharpened, this may be a little bit much too an aggressive a sharpen. So if I take that shake reduction off, for example, you'll see that if you look at this crater here, there's enough white exposure there as it sits. If I put that shake reduction back on, it'll sharpen things up, but sometimes it overexposes the whites. So it depends again, at this point in time, it's almost like putting salt and pepper on your meal. So it's whatever you want to deal with, right? So that basically is how essentially I would do that photograph using the sharpening algorithm that's built into Auto Stacker. And I'll shrink that back down. Oops. And then we'll flip that the way that the orientation should be, because the moon doesn't sit like that in our sky. But that just happened to be the way that my camera was sitting when I was imaging it. As well as counterclockwise rotation. There we go. And that would be more of a representation of what that moon would look like. So basically, that's pretty much it. Right from the video to the stacking software to Photoshop with just a couple of simple things, and there's quite a nice moon picture that you'd be semi-proud to put on Facebook. That's it.
Semi-proud.
That turned out beautiful.
Okay.
I'd be proud of that one.
Now let me see if I can't unshare so you guys can. There, and you're back.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul. That was amazing. Nice job.
Thanks.
So we're down to about 2.5 minutes left. Just looking to see if there's any other questions for Paul. Any questions up here for Paul that you'd? That's the idea of us going live here is to answer questions as often as possible.
It doesn't have to be about what we presented tonight. It could be
No,
any
absolutely.
astronomy-related question.
Absolutely. And if you have,
Chris,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, Chris, there was something I didn't want to forget because I forgot it last week.
Okay.
Robert Cadet had sent us some photographs.
Right.
And basically, when we were talking about Cassiopeia, he wanted he sent the photographs in because we're always looking for photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I'd show them this week. There's only 4.
Sure.
So let's see if we can show
Back
them.
to
up
share
here.
your screen again, Paul.
Yeah, I will. I'll just get them up here. And share screen. There we go. Okay, so the first one I think is a very familiar one. And I think without too much guess, we can see what that is.
We're
Most
not looking
of
at
us
it yet.
know.
We can't see it yet, Paul.
Uh-huh. You can't see it?
No.
Oh, sorry. One sec here. My apologies. There you go. See it now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so basically that is, some would call it the ET cluster. And NGC 457, is that correct?
That's right.
That's right, Emil. You lean to this particular one, when he took it through his telescope, he's leaning to the left. So if you're not familiar with ET, there's his 2 eyes, and there's his arms all stretched out, and there's his little body and his 2 little short feet. And if you really pretend, you can see, just pretend that's his knuckles and there's his little finger. ET, phone home. That's ET. Let's see what else we got from Robert. He also sent this image of the Bow Tie Nebula, and I'll blow that up a little bit. I'm not familiar with this nebula. Anybody else?
I've
was looking for the straight
observed
line.
it visually.
Okay.
It kind of looks like that visually, except for you can't perceive the color.
Okay. So apparently, I guess if you get a really, really good view of it, it's shaped like a bow tie. Again, I've not seen that one, so that's the first time. Thank you for that, Robert. And there's just 2 more. And the final 2 images, these are all in and around Cassiopeia. This one here is one of Emil's, I think one of his favorites. I don't know. I could be wrong when I say that. But this is in the double cluster. And so this would be NGC 869. And this one's got the cowboy in it. And I had to get Chris to point this out to me earlier today. But so cowboy, and correct me if I'm wrong, Emil, this is his cowboy's hat. These little stars right here.
Chris is the one who pointed it out
That's
to
right.
me, so
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay,
right.
sorry. And then there's his little face right here.
Yep.
And if you look, these two things here are his shoulders, and his arms are going down to his side, and there's his two pistols. And of course, there's his horse type of walking legs. He just got off a horse, so he's got the old horse legs there.
Ready to
So
draw.
that's in Cassiopeia. And one more. This is the other part of the double cluster, and this is NGC 884. And when you're looking at these through binoculars, you can actually see both these clusters together. But he took this to a telescope, so this is why they're separated. But they're both just beautiful clusters, and it's very, very, very handy, the Cassiopeia. And this is actually a naked eye object.
Yes, it is.
The double cluster. Yeah.
Good job, Robert.
Yes,
Yes,
great
Thank
job,
you very
Robert.
much, Robert. Thank you.
And if anybody
I'll
else
get it
wants to
back.
send in some pictures, sure, just send them along to any of us here at St. John Astronomy Club. We're all through that as well. You can send them to my Facebook page, Astronomy by the Bay, or I guess that's probably the best way to reach me. Anything that you see with Astronomy by the Bay, that'll get through to me. So thanks, Robert, for those pictures, and we'd love to feature your photos next week. Anybody else's? Of course, on these live feeds, you can go back and review these at any time, and leave your comments, please, which I do check. I do go in and check to see what comments we're getting. And if you enjoyed these talks, please do remember to give us a thumbs up. So now next week we're going to try again for clear skies. We'll see how things go. We're really trying hard, but it is the maritime, so we'll see how things make out next week. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you all for joining on with me tonight. Emil in Bactouche up there. We've got Paul in Hampton, and Mike in St. John. Mike, awful quiet there tonight.
I'm trying to be. It's working well.
Yeah. And from all of us here in this area, we wish you all clear skies, and we hope to see you all back again next week. And please go ahead and share this video. Thanks so much, folks. See you all again.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.